Well, now you have very high expectations.
You'll
Okay.
live up to it.
Well, you said to bring a kosher snack, right? The email? So I brought this.
Yeah.
That's kosher, right?
Right.
Good. Okay, so we're going to read a little bit from this kosher book today together. And really, when I was invited to speak here, first of all, I thought this is really an honor to be here with you and to speak to you in this special evening. And I thought and prayed about what I should share with you this evening. Now, I kind of sensed that I was asked to share my testimony and about the ministry, but I will do that. But I always like to bring something from the Word. And this evening, I thought, well, we call it an evening to honor Israel, right? So I'm just wondering, when each of us think about, okay, we have an evening to honor Israel, what are we thinking about really? Are we all thinking the same thing? What does it mean to us to honor Israel? And the first thing that I would think that we should determine is, what is Israel? Or who is Israel? Is it a what? Is it a who? Is it a where? What is it that we are to honor? And once we do that, then we'll have to figure it out, well, how can we honor Israel? So, to do that, I wanted to just to share with you a few points, and I will share part of my testimony and show you a few pictures of some people. But the first thing, when we think about Israel, as I said, what is it? Who is it? What are we talking about? The first place in the Bible where the name Israel is mentioned is in Genesis 32. And I want to read that verse. Some of you may have heard me teach or preach or speak a whole hour about that, so I just want to touch it briefly this time. But it's key because it's the first time that the name Israel is mentioned. So, as you may recall, it's when Jacob met someone that changed his name into Israel. Before that, the name Israel wasn't mentioned. So let me just read a few verses here in Genesis 32. And it says, "And he arose that night," meaning Jacob, "and took his 2 wives and 2 female servants and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of Jabbok. He took them, sent them over the brook, and sent over what he had. Then Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. Now when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip. And the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, 'Let me go, for the day breaks.' But he said, 'I will not let you go until you bless me.' And he said to him, 'What is your name?' He said, 'Jacob.' And he said, 'Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel.'" Here it is, the first time in the Bible that the name Israel is mentioned. So let me ask you, according to what we read up until now in the Bible, what is Israel, or who is Israel? Israel is what? What is it? It's a man, right? It's a human being, it's a man, it's a person, right? It's a person named Jacob, was in quite a trouble, and then he met someone that transformed him and gave him the name Israel. I will not go this time about the whole meaning of what is the name Israel and the whole thing about this. But the only thing I want us to understand here, that when we talk about Israel, we talk about the person. We talk about a human being. 2 hands, 2 feet, 1 nose. You know, a person. Like you and I. That's Israel. It's a person. So I don't know what you thought before that. Maybe when you heard the name Israel, you thought, oh, it's a person. I doubt it. I think you had all kinds of different things in your mind about Israel. Did you think about who here, before I said that, when you heard the name Israel, thought about the person? Anyone? None of us, right? So, good. So I feel like I'm going the right way. So let's continue. Now, what some of you may be thinking when you heard about the name Israel, I'm just guessing, you were thinking about the land of Israel. Anyone here thought about the land of Israel when you thought about Israel? Okay, the land of Israel. That's true. That's true. But I want us to notice a few interesting things about that. Okay? So, first of all, I want to go to Genesis chapter 12 for a second. And you know the story. But let me read it anyway. Now the Lord had said to Abraham at that point, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. And you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you." Now, just in brackets, I just want to mention here, you notice you keep hearing, "Bless Israel and you will be blessed. If you curse Israel, you will be cursed," right? That's true. But let's read it again. There's something that should happen, that's something that we can read just before that. And that put it in context, okay? What it says just before that, it says, "And I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing." You, Abraham, you will be a blessing. Only after that it says, "And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you." First and foremost, God called Abraham himself to be a blessing. Now let me ask you, do you think in some way Abraham was a blessing to you? I know he was a blessing to me, and I also know he was a blessing to you. Because just like God promised him over here, from his seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. And we know who we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. But let's continue. "And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed." Okay. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions, and they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Israel? No? Land of Canaan. You say Canaan in English? Canaan? Canaan, right? We say Canaan. Canaan. Which land is he talking about? Israel, right? Why doesn't it say Israel? It says go to the land of Canaan. Talking about the same piece of land, right? That's the land that we all want to go, you know, and see the sights and walk through it, you know, where Jesus walked and everything. But here it's actually called the land of Canaan. Why are we calling it the land of Israel? That's a good question. What's made it the land of Israel? Why is it not called the land of Canaan anymore? Why is it the land of Israel? That we're excited about.